Welcome, and thank you for attending my presentation about Felt. Felt is one of the candidates to rule the nation, but what is curious is that, despite apparently being one of the weakest options as a candidate, she currently seems to be the strongest rival on the scene. It is not just the state of her camp that catches my attention, but it is also interesting to see the background that Taipei has prepared for her, as it seems she is the last descendant of the royal family. Now I will tell you the story of her entire past before the anime, and also other interesting aspects of her character, such as her feelings, her strength, and her future. At one point, the last descendants of the royal family of Lugunica began to fall ill with a deadly and very selective disease. Deadly because it killed every infected member, selective because it only seemed to affect those descendants of Farsale Lugunica. Farsale Lugunica was the king who, 400 years ago, with the help of Flugel and his group, managed to secure a pact in favor of the nation of Lugunica with the dragon Volcanica. Since it is said that this pact was made with Farsale's family, it was assumed that as long as this family continued to reign, Lugunica would enjoy a state of constant prosperity along with protection provided by the dragon. However, years before the events of the first episode, the current descendants of Farsala began to die. First, it was the king of that time, Randohal Lugunica, who died around the same date as his two children. Seeing this, Randohal's younger brother, Ford Lugunica, decided that his newborn daughter would not meet the same fate. So he entrusted his daughter to an old prisoner of war named Ram, who was known for his hatred of humans. But for some strange reason, the king entrusted his newborn daughter to him. The name of this child is unknown, but the old Ram eventually grew fond of her and began calling her Felt. It is said that Felt occasionally has strange dreams, and in these dreams, she sees the events I have just narrated to you. Time passed, and Felt and Ram endured many hardships. It is not easy to live in the slums of Lugunica, a place abandoned by the capital, where people do whatever they can to survive. You know, like Peru. It is said that it was common for Felt, in order to get rid of the feeling of hunger, to start eating snow to trick her stomach. Additionally, it is said that although she trusted no one, she did trust the old Ram because she considers him her only family. She also states that she hates her parents for having abandoned her. Due to the fact that Felt relies heavily on Ram, there are always references to the fact that she likes older boys. It is said that she sometimes depended on the kindness of some prostitutes who were engaged in the oldest profession in the world. It was there where they, delighted with Felt, began to buy her food and clothes so that she could survive. But they had to say goodbye to her when they found out that the local pimp was planning to add Felt to his lineup of girls. It is there where Felt would begin to take care of committing thefts. Due to her divine protection, it was easy for her to dedicate herself to this profession. She hoped to steal enough so that one day she could escape from there with old Ram. But being good at this brought her problems with other thieves in the area, so she had to devise a plan for the royal guards to get rid of the competition. Her plan was a success, and thus the others stopped taking reprisals against her. It is not surprising that later Elsa ended up choosing her in this way. After being kidnapped by Reinhard, he takes her to his house in the capital. It is there where Felt and Reinhard would start to interact and agree on her participation in the royal elections, although Felt lied and spent more time trying to escape from him. Also during those days when she received etiquette and clothing training, one day she would meet Heinkel and both started to detest each other. Another day, in one of her many escape attempts, she would enter the basement of Reinhard's house and sees a beautiful woman of about 20 years old who was in a deep sleep. At first, she thought that it was actually a woman kidnapped by Reinhard, just as she had been kidnapped. But then she would find out the details. After Subaru caused a commotion at the royal selection, she definitely agrees to dedicate herself to her role as a candidate. But before that, she wanted to say goodbye to the house that saw her grow. The house in the slums where Elsa confronted Reinhard. It is there where she would see again the thieves from episode 1 who had caused a serious accident. Feeling sorry for them, she decides to give them work. After that, she would set off toward the territory that the Estrella family controls. the territory of Flanders. It is supposed that there the people should support her unconditionally, but she only encountered a disunited, disorganized population controlled by crime. So she spent time between the second and third seasons taking care of the unification of her territory. For this, she had to hold several meetings with the leaders of the factions that controlled the underworld, and after tumultuous revelations, she managed to make everyone work for her. I know that you will surely think that it was only enough to send Reinhard to defeat them, but things were more complicated than that. It is in this mess where she would meet Ezo, Flam, and Gracis, and she would also become friends with Anastasia at the end of this conflict. I know that around those days, it also happened that one day a baby was abandoned outside her house, which temporarily forced her to raise it together with Reinhard. And at the conclusion of these events, the story of the third season of the anime would begin. As I mentioned earlier, she has a divine protection that allows her to move at great speeds using the wind, but contrary to what one might believe, this is not the divine protection of the wind. Instead, it is something else. We do not know what this power is, and there have been no hints given in the novel, but it seems that in Arc 9, we will soon find out. We can see that she does not have great physical strength, so I see Felt as more useful in infiltration operations. Since it is almost certain that she is the missing princess, it is not surprising that Felt has another ability that helps her significantly. You see, it is said that all members of the royal family had unparalleled charisma, which allowed them to lead others naturally. In other words, they were born leaders. This is why it is not surprising that Felt, despite how young she is, has been able to get along with the criminal gangs of her city and even earn their respect. The most interesting part is that she considers these gangs necessary for governing the city, unlike Amelia, who would probably not tolerate their existence. I do not mean to say that Felt is corrupt and would allow evil, but there are certain limits she is willing to tolerate as long as it is not something truly questionable. There is not much to say about her level in this scale. She is very weak. She is agile, but that is all. She would probably be able to run away from many situations, but she certainly would not be able to defeat many. Perhaps she could defeat the thieves from the beginning or Subaru, but nothing more. Felt managed to unify the 5 criminal gangs that were in her area. Although to be fair, she actually ended up eliminating one of them for being very, very dangerous. She also managed to gain the support of the second strongest mage in the kingdom. I am talking about Ezo, from whom we saw great feats accomplished in his novel and in Arc 9. Another achievement worth mentioning is having managed to include Old Rom in her faction. Rom was a demi-human supremacist who was very intelligent to the point that he used his intellect to make great strikes against the human kingdom, but now he uses this intellect to support his little granddaughter. It is also known that Felt's influence and intervention did not only remain in Flanders, but managed to expand even beyond. Felt's future looks bright, not only because when she rebels and confirms that she is the kidnapped daughter of the kingdom, this will cause a great boost to her popularity as a candidate. There is also the detail that it seems that in the arc where Capella becomes active again, these two appear to be destined to confront each other one way or another, and that is because both seem to be the only survivors of the royal family. I do not know about you, but I see the idea epic that the last 2 members of a family fight to the death in passing. Tappe could use this to expand on the lore of the royal family. While so far we have names of the kings and princes, we still do not know the appearance or how many of them were. Currently in the novel, she is facing Aldebaran, and as she is not that strong, she has brought an army of 500 soldiers with her. It is said that all these soldiers are the force of the criminal organizations that swore cooperation to her. Perhaps they are not as strong as Al's previous opponents, but being a large quantity makes it much harder for Al's ability, which works better when there are few enemies to deal with. I know that inevitably Felt will lose, but at least I hope she manages to inflict a decisive blow on Aldebaran. a blow that eventually leads to his defeat, such as taking Heinkel out of his hands, so that he cannot threaten Reinhard with him anymore. But tell me, what do you think of Felt's life?